Welcome to Life List, a birding podcast.
Welcome, everyone. We're back with another episode of Life List, a birding podcast. I am George Armistead, and today I'm talking with Mollee Brown. We're going to talk about some Colombia. Mollee, how you doing today?
I am doing great today. How about you, George?
I'm doing good. Yeah, it's like, working out in the yard, doing a little uplimbing on our dogwood. Got the Blue Jays are moving.
Yeah.
Feels very, very autumn here. How about there?
Yeah, here too. This is definitely my favorite time of year. I just have so much energy. I think for my mental health, this is the best time. It just feels so nice and crisp outside. We've been doing a lot of work on our property. We spent yesterday just picking seeds from different places and kind of spreading them out and seeding in different places where we wanted to move different asters and some walnuts and a couple other flowers around. And I've been traveling. I've been on the road a lot. We'll be talking about Colombia. I was there for a few weeks, came back for a bit. I've been in Georgia the past week working on some conservation program development that I just got started on this month. So that was really just interesting and a lot of information gathering and that sort of thing. And was in the middle of packing when we jumped on to record, heading out tomorrow to drive up through the Northeast for a couple weeks.
Yeah. We were talking about scheduling, when the heck are we going to record here? And then I was looking at your schedule. I was like, man, we better get this in. Mollee is on the road a ton coming up. So yeah. What's going on up in the Northeast? Anything fun you want to tell folks about?
Yeah, it's just a road trip that we kind of put together quickly, strung a few friends together that we wanted to visit in Burlington and Rochester. So piecing that together, but working our way up the East Coast and hitting a few birding spots, some hiking, and I haven't spent much time up that way at all. I've been to Maine and done some birding up there and have driven through the Northeast, but that's about it. So, I'm just really excited to take our time and slowly work our way around for a week or two.
Wow, that sounds awesome. And I think the fall foliage, you're probably going to hit that peak in some places, I imagine.
Yeah, I think we might be. When I was flying back the day before yesterday from DC over to Pittsburgh, you could see through the clouds pretty much the whole way, and it was looking pretty good. So it'll be fun to be driving all that.
Yeah, I've been looking at I forget which Instagram that I follow that's got graphics about it shows peaks in various different parts of the state of Pennsylvania, and it looks like the North Central is coming into peak. So I imagine you get up north of that and it'll be real, real nice.
I think so. How's it looking there?
It's looking pretty gorgeous. Yeah, it's some of these trees are turning burnt umber and scarlet, and all the Virginia creeper and the sumac is long since gone bright red, which is always good. It means that there's fruit and there's birds at the fruit. There's birds feeding on poison ivy. Actually, one of the cool things I did see was which I've not seen before, was a yellow-bellied sapsucker feeding on the fruits of a poison ivy vine hanging from a big pine tree. Yeah, so I was yeah, I couldn't tell what it was doing. I was I was with the group. We were birding down on the eastern shore of Virginia, and someone was like, "Oh, sapsucker coming in." We actually had a nice flight of them. There's it's half a dozen. Or more sapsuckers at this one spot. Some of them were just cruising by. This one pitched in, and it was messing around. And I was like, "What's that thing doing?" And I put my bins on it, and it was actually eating fruits from poison ivy. So
wow,
that was pretty cool. But yeah. We had a nice Hillstar Nature group, 16 folks. We birded around the eastern shore of Virginia, Cape Charles area, place. I grew up birding, grew up birding there more so than birding around here in Philadelphia. And had my buddy Todd Day was with me, and Kristen was with me. My folks were down there. We brought the dog as well, so he got a lot of beach time in. And we had some really nice weather and nice migration. Had had a couple days where we did some morning flight watches, and we were watching stuff migrating by. Big numbers of accipiters, Sharpies and Coopers moving through in big numbers. And of course, that's always a fun ID challenge. And I'm sure we got our percentage incorrect, but still just cool to see them moving,
Yeah,
And,
definitely.
Yeah. And
I've noticed some goshawk movement over the past few days, and that's something that I have yet to intercept and have my fingers crossed that will happen on my next trip.
Yeah, I feel like it's like a little on the early side, and I've been seeing that as well, like reports of goshawks popping up, and some of them are photographed, so you can actually be like, oh, that goshawk, as we all have discussed before, I think is a frequently misidentified bird.
Yeah.
There are many birds that are not goshawks that are called goshawks, but some of these lately have been photographed so that you can actually tell. You're like, wow, that really is a goshawk.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that would be awesome to run across. I have to admit, I've been fantasizing about that one for the yard for certain.
Yeah, that would be a good yard one.
Yeah.
Tell me, what's your feeder setup like in your yard?
Interesting you should ask, Molly, because we've got like a couple shepherd's crooks up just with like platform feeder that's been up since we moved in. And we've got 2 hummingbird feeders still going, even though we haven't seen a hummingbird here for a long time now, for probably over 2 weeks, I'm guessing, maybe even 3 weeks since we've had a hummingbird. But of course, we are keeping our fingers crossed and our eyes open that something might pop up here in the late autumn that's a little bit different. So Kristen's been really vigilant about changing the water there and making sure there's food available should a Mexican violet ear or a green-breasted mango decide to grace our presence. But we also put up our first like seed feeders, hanging seed feeders. I don't actually know what style you'd call them, but one's like the typical kind of columnar seed feeder, because all of a sudden the whitethroats have hit and the juncos are back, and so yeah, we want to be ready for them, in case they want to grub out in the yard here. We want to have that smorgasbord ready for them and see what else pops in with them. That's
great. Yeah. I was wondering about that. I was just working on my feeders earlier today as well. Well, as I said, we're getting ready to head out for a while, so I stocked up on a few different feeders and put a few extra out. I usually just toss peanuts out and actually stuffed them in one of these peanut wreaths that I haven't had a ton of luck with before.
The Blue Jays
like it.
The Blue Jays
haven't got into it.
Okay, because I was going to say somebody in this neighborhood has got peanuts out, because I keep seeing Blue Jays flying, and I'm like, if they got acorns, I'm like, those are peanuts, like full peanuts.
Yeah,
yeah,
that's funny. Yeah, I've noticed that when I'm traveling a few times. I forget, maybe when I was in San Diego earlier this year, kept seeing Stellar's Jays, and then I thought, they all have peanuts. And then I realized there's a little housing development on like the other side of the ridge that I was in. But yeah, I took my hummingbird feeders down today, though. They might go back up, but yeah, they're down while we're traveling anyway.
We put our suet feeders up today as well. So hopefully there's maybe something for those sapsuckers or other birds. I feel like you don't really see sapsuckers at suet, but at least for the downies and red bellies and so forth.
Yep. I got suet, decided not to put it out. Where we live now, I've never had issues with mice before, but there are mice all over the place. They're like, we have the live traps. And they just come in daily in the house. So that's another factor.
We've got a few rats that camp out under the platform feeder where the birds spill everything. So far, they have remained outside, thankfully.
Yeah, that's better. All right, the mice they're small. They don't bother me too much here. But it is something that even though I grew up, I don't know, in the country, you'd think I have more mice there. But no, I've never had to deal with that until now. I'm pretty used to it now.
Yeah, I remember a house that had a literally uncontrollable mouse problem where like there was no amount of trapping that was going to solve the problem. It was a little disturbing. I was happy to move out of that spot.
Yeah. We don't have that many, but it is fairly constant. And if you don't keep up with it, I think they will number up. I planted a bunch of oak trees, like bought a bunch of the little pots and got a nice soil mix the way I wanted it last year. And a mouse just went through and ate all of them. I had them sitting out here on the porch, and I want to play with that again this year, but I want the right combination of getting sunlight, but also the cold temperatures, and also keep mice out. And I don't really know how to do all of those things at my current location. So we'll see.
Yeah, it sounds like it could be a challenge, but perhaps a fun one.
Yeah, it's a fun one. It would be more fun if a few of the acorns made it, but we'll try again.
Yeah. Nice. Well, we are recording today in no small part because you just got back from Colombia, and we are soon going to Colombia.
That's right.
Yes. So, yeah, first of all, let's tell folks what you just did, Mollee. It looked like a heck of a trip.
Yeah. So we've talked about fam trips a little bit on the podcast before, and this was a fam trip that I was invited to for a women-only trip that was all centered around conservation sites, family-owned, protected lands throughout Colombia. And of course, with a birding perspective. But we also did a lot of different, I guess what you'd call cultural activities. I heard an argument somewhere recently that cultural gives the perception that it's like looking at everything from a historical context and not necessarily like the current present day-to-day culture. So I've been thinking about a better word for that. But anyway, we did all sorts of things. We had a cooking class and went to a lot of different, just like I said, family sites, and got to see a site that does a lot of medicinal plants and different plant uses and that sort of thing too. Birded every day. Did the typical fam trip style where you're sort of moving around a lot, just getting a sampling of a lot of different places. Started in the lowlands, down really close to Ecuador border. We really weren't that far from Mindo.
Oh, wow. I've never been down that way.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. And not an area that's been accessible for too long in Colombia. So that's probably why.
Was this in Putumayo?
This was Putumayo region, which was, I would say, the main focus of the trip. But a lot of it was in Putumayo, and then just sort of worked our way up the Central Andes and ended up flying up to Manizales, which is where we'll be based for our trip coming up in February.
Yeah.
And had the most incredible networking event that I've ever been to. It was just 2 days of truly like speed dating for different Colombian nature-based organizations. So I was extremely impressed by that as well.
Nice.
And that was the trip.
I feel like that's something that the Colombians do very, very well. Alvaro has spoken before about how there's just sort of a great deal of kind of confidence that it seems like Colombians have, like about.
Totally. Yes.
Yeah. And it means that, it kind of manifests itself in an easy conversational style that a lot of them have. And it just seems like when it comes to the networking side of things, they're very good at that. And it just makes it fun. You just sort of feels like you have an instant network there.
Yeah. So, confidence is a great way to put it. I've seen that on the international scale when, there have been Colombia sponsored booths at different birding festivals or events and that sort of thing. But wow, they put on quite an event.
Yeah.
Makes me excited for Colombia Bird Fair.
Yeah. And you were at El Recinto del Pensamiento, right? Which is that's right where we're going to be based. And folks can check it out. We there's actually a nice image of it on our Life List podcast site. If you go to the Join Us in Colombia button, you can see there's kind of this crazy wooden structure that actually is one of the outdoor meeting spaces at El Recinto. And you kind of walk by this pond and the grounds of El Recinto itself are quite good for birding. You can see a good number of birds. And one of the things I remember, you wouldn't have seen that this time of year as much, Mollee, but in winter, it's actually a really good place for like Blackburnian warblers. I remember seeing a
Oh,
lot of
wow.
Blackburnian warblers and Canada warblers and broad-winged hawks wintering up in the hills above the of the hotel there. And so it's quite a good place. It's kind of funny to go to this place and you're seeing, toady flycatchers and cattle tyrants and,
Hmm.
various hummingbirds buzzing and whizzing about, and whiskered wrens calling away in the hills,
Hmm.
which is fun. They're really, really loud. But then mixed in are these kind of friends from home, and those will be really obvious when we're there in February. And it's just a really nice place to base yourself. That's one of the meeting spaces if you go to the website that you'll see. But the hotel itself is really comfortable. It's a great base of operations for exploring the Central Andes, and which is part of the reason we're doing it there. It's a
Yeah.
very popular place for birders, and the food is good, and there's great meeting spaces, and there's great birding right on the grounds, and kind of like an hour or 2 hours in any direction. There's a whole
Hmm.
bunch of birding sites, which I imagine you must have hit at least a couple of those while you were there. Yeah.
We touched on them a little bit. We didn't get to go out from that area very much. And we flew in to there from where we had done the bulk of our birding. But I got enough to get a
Gotcha.
taste and went
Hmm.
around. Like you said, it's a big grounds. I mean, it's a whole conference center, which is Colombian owned. I met some of their staff as part of the networking as well and got to see some of their other properties around Colombia. But, I mean, it's got several different wings of rooms and a restaurant and a cafe. It has a little spa and gym there that I
Hmm.
mentally noted for next time. But
Nice.
different wetland areas and hummingbird feeders, and just enough space you can walk around and do some birding. I mean, I think I had 50 species or so there while
Yeah. Yeah. You can
also
do that.
doing other things. So, yeah, it's a great
Yeah.
spot to be
Yeah, and
based.
they have a little butterfly house and an orchid garden as well.
Hmm.
So there's quite a bit to do right there. But right nearby, some of the spots we're going to hit that are well known. Probably one of the most famous birding spots in Colombia is Rio Blanco, and
Hmm.
that's a major site. It's a spot where they have um, gotten ant pittas to come in and be fed, and so it's a really good place to see bicolored ant pitta, to see chestnut crowned ant pitta, occasionally other ant pittas as well. There's a chance for birds like chestnut wood quail, which is easier to see and harder or easier to hear than it is to see. But it's just a great birding area in general. There's all sorts of stuff on in kind of the ridge top above, and then right around the station itself. You can get buff-breasted mountain tanagers and just all sorts of birds at the feeders. Buff-tailed coronets are like in abundance. They're buzzing all around your head, and the photo ops are pretty amazing right there. And the same is true at Hacienda El Bosque, which is quite close as well. Both of these
Hmm.
places, I think, are an hour or less away from our lodge, and that is a place where gray-breasted mountain toucans just are right in your face and really dramatic. It's a place where there's a chance for crescent-faced ant pitta, although I missed it last time. It had moved its territory, and I gather it has been seen again since then. But at the time I was there in July, we dipped on it, which was rather painful.
Hmm.
But such is birding.
Well,
Uh,
luckily, we'll be back soon.
Yeah, exactly. And there were birds like barred fruit eater, coming to feeders, and a big array of hummingbirds and tanagers and sickle-billed guans and all sorts of stuff. That it's kind of amazing and overwhelming. This incredible array of birds is just kind of right in your face, and
Hmm.
so that'll be an awesome spot. And then one of my other favorite spots is the really high elevation spot outside of town there, up in the national park, at Paramo del Ruiz, in Termales de Ruiz. Um, and up in the mountains there on the volcano, we'll get up about 13,000 feet. And up there, we are in the Paramo, which is a really special habitat that is not so easily accessible in many other areas. But in Colombia, there's a couple sites, and this is a really good one. And kind of one of the primary targets will be the Buffy helmet crest, which is only found on that mountain, which is pretty crazy. It's like literally like a teeny tiny postage stamp sized range. And man, it's a stunner of a bird. It's sort of like a hummingbird with a mohawk and like this kind of purplish beard. So that'll be cool.
It will be. Is there a feeder set up for that?
Not for the helmet crest, but they come to these like Esplitia plants or frailejones, as they call them up there, because I guess they sort of resemble like monks praying up in the Paramo. It's all open. There's no real trees, but there's these Esplitias, and they have these little yellow blossoms, and that's what the helmet crest really likes. But there's also a couple other plants that it will come to and feed at. But it's quite a weird hummingbird. They'll even like kind of perch on the, like the ground a little bit. Like you'll see them like every now and then. Yeah, you'll see them every now and then, like kind of coming. It's sort of like tundra, like spongy stuff up there. Every now and then you'll see one actually like on the ground. Usually they're buzzing around, up in kind of, waist high, chest high, and there's a visitor center there where they're usually fairly regularly seen. But there is a tremendous feeding station not far from there. The helmet crests don't come there, but shining sunbeams are there. A bunch of different, blueing mountain tanagers and all sorts of, or lacrymose mountain tanagers and scarlet-bellied mountain tanagers, which they call clarineros, because they say that their little toots sound sort of like a clarinet. And that is a tremendous spot for photography and for birding. And it's, you just kind of hang out. These things occasionally even land like right on you. It's pretty amazing. So I'm looking forward to that. Yeah.
I'm looking forward to that too. I mean, I'm quite excited to get into the Paramo. That will be a lot of fun. I realized on this past trip that the setups that I enjoyed the most are where you had some feeder stations around, but you had enough of habitat development, I guess, where you could also get those mixed flocks coming through. And like if you get a combination where you can have a chance at both of those at the same time, you can spend quite a lot of time in just one place seeing a lot of birds.
Yeah. And actually one spot I forgot to mention that, as you say, that reminds me, is Tinamou. We're going to be going to the Tinamou Lodge there. We'll spend at least half a day there, and that is a place where you have a chance also at scaled ant pitta. But yeah, it's a similar setup. There's hummingbird feeders and fruit feeders and Andean moths and steely vented hummingbirds are coming into the feeders. But then you go out on the trail, and it's possible to run into some flocks moving through, where you can really pick up a whole bunch of birds. And it's lower there. It's warmer there. The species diversity it actually goes up a little bit there. But it's a whole different array of birds than we'll see elsewhere. So that's a place that'll really pad our list a lot, actually, while still providing really good photo ops, good views and stuff. So yeah, that's an example of that kind of place that you're talking about. Feeder setups with good, potential for flocks moving through.
Yeah. Oh, sounds like fun.
Yeah, it's going to be great.
Yep.
We got a nice group coalescing and around this event, just to give folks a little bit more feedback and info on what we're doing. I was trying to remember some of the questions we got, Molly, but I know some folks were interested in like the airports in and out. It pretty much is end to end. So if you're coming in, you can do one of two things. You can fly into Pereira, which is the biggest international airport near Manizales, and there are daily flights from Miami there. Or you can fly into Bogota and then catch a short flight over to Pereira from there, and from there we'll we'll get you picked up and transported over to El Recinto. And the other side, we would go out of Cali, which is a big town with international flights and a bigger airport. Pereira is actually a pretty small airport.
Mm-hmm.
But Cali is a bigger airport with more international flights. It's a big city, and that's where the bird fair is, and that's going to be a hoot as well. So basically, we got 5 nights in Manizales there at El Recinto, and then we pick up and move to the Western Andes from the Central Andes over to the town of Cali, which, as I say, is a big town, and we'll have a couple nights there to do some birding, meet a whole bunch more Colombians, and really interface with the folks there. And I gather that Mexico is the invited country this year for the bird fair, so there probably will be a good number of birders from Mexico as well, which should be fun. And the list of speakers looks great and includes you, Mollee Brown, and me, and our host Chris Bell. I think we're going to do a little recording while we're there. Chris Bell from the Birding Show, and I think that bird fair is just going to be. Our Manizales part's going to be awesome, and it'll be a little more cozy and just us. And we'll get to the bird fair. It'll just be a big party with a bunch of Colombian birders, and should be a great time.
Yeah, it'll be quite a trip, and like almost 2 trips in one.
Yeah, it really is.
Between the 2 destinations. I mean, the birds are just going to be, totally different, and it's going to be quite a list between the 2 places.
Yeah, the Western Andes, there's a whole bunch of stuff that is very, very different from what we would be seeing in Manizales. Chances at things like crested ant tanager, and I think there's a spot where we might have a chance at Andean cock of the rock. Maybe not quite like the video you got, Mollee, but that was amazing. But multicolored tanager is kind of the big special bird that can be seen just outside of Cali, so we'll have a chance at that as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I hadn't talked to any about. So I had the fam trip and it was my first trip to Colombia. I don't think I mentioned that. First trip to South America at all. So I'd been hoping and planning on doing that, and was really planning a trip in earnest right before the pandemic that hadn't panned out. So went and visited my friend Giovanni, who is one of our co-hosts for our trip as well. But he lives in Medellin, and went there for the week before and did some birding in that area as well, including in Jardín, which is where I had that Cock of the Rock video.
That's fun. Where that was.
Which really is pretty similar to Recinto, actually. I think it's not very far away. I'm not sure exactly how the elevations compare, but the birds had some overlap, more so than any other 2 destinations. But that was great. Got to see Medellin, spend a little bit of time in the city and the outskirts, and then also just take off and do some birding in the mountains around there too. So that was a lot of fun.
That's excellent. Yeah, I've not been to Jardín, but I understand it's a pretty cute little mountain town, and I'm looking forward. I think I might get there this year. We'll see.
Yeah, I was hearing how just depends on how you lay out a trip, because, well, as I said, you can drive. So it's, I think, could be driving distance from Bogota. It's maybe 6-8 hours. I think that it's not the greatest of roads, and that sometimes there's construction or there's something holding the road up. So it's not always incorporated into a trip. Otherwise, you kind of circle around from Medellin and it's sort of a dead end and you go back out. It was a great town, though. I really, really liked it. Out of all the little towns that I visited, or locations like that along the way, that's the one that I'm thinking about getting back to. Just small, gorgeous, lots and lots of outdoor activities. I mean, we just walked around the town the first day. I mean, Cock of the Rock, you go in and it's this sort of like quintessential South American town, I would say. Just, big square plaza, lots of music and people and beautifully colored buildings. Every other building had either an Andean motmot or a Cock of the Rock, either like built into their logo or just painted on the buildings or whatnot. And I guess a couple different tanagers. I mean, it was a very birdie place, and a hub of coffee connoisseurs as well. So that was fun. But that is literally 2 blocks from the plaza where you just walk down to the riverside, and it's a maybe a US based biologist that had just bought some land. There's Cock of the Rock Lek, and purchased the land and protected it, and you paid a few dollars, and that employed a caretaker and went in and got to see the lek. And it was so cool because there were lots of tourists from all over who were coming down to enjoy it. And you didn't need binoculars or anything. They were quite close, and there were half a dozen males just completely carrying on, even in the pouring rain when I was watching them.
Wow. The video you got was like pretty stirring. It's like, I was like, man, that looks amazing.
Yeah, it was really, really cool. I mean, they're right in front of you. So it was just a cool town that really had a lot of nature and conservation focus throughout every little business that I went to. And like I said, everything was close by. We did a driving day and hit some different elevations. Went to an ant pittis station and spent, I don't know, an hour feeding ant pittis. That was amazing.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that was incredible. But it was just a great destination all the way around. I could spend a lot of time there.
Nice. Yeah, I do think, and so folks know, like we've kind of outlined the main event here, which is, 5 nights or so in Manizales, and then another couple in Cali, the big town of Cali. And but we do have some other trips you could do in association with this main trip, which include a Santa Marta's trip up in northern Colombia, a trip from Pasto to Pitalito, and also a trip to the Colombian Amazon in Inírida, which is a really fun area. I absolutely love that spot. I'm dying to get back there. Hope that one works out. And also to the Llanos and the Magdalena Valley. The Llanos is pretty great for photography too. Like if the Llanos is, people may or may not know, is kind of a floodplain, a seasonal floodplain. And in February, it's kind of towards the end of the dry season. And so if you go then, all the pools and watering holes are starting to shrink and shrink and shrink. And it really does kind of concentrate birds around them. And it can make for some pretty spectacular wildlife sightings. There's just capybaras are everywhere. And but there's other things too. There's you have a chance at giant anteater. You have a chance at jaguar. It's slender but slim but possible. You will certainly probably see tracks of jaguar. And there's anacondas there, and people see those maybe 50% of the time when they visit this area.
I saw some videos of that. So there were other fam trips. This was this ecotourism summit was created by Pro Colombia. So they'd sponsored a few different fam trips to different places. So we all came together there at the end for that networking event and saw videos of people like selfies with anacondas. And
wow,
it was crazy. And that was from the Llanos. I mean, it looked like awesome mammal opportunities in that area.
Yeah, there's crab-eating foxes are pretty common. There's a whole bunch of stuff, and like the front half of the field guide is really well represented in the Llanos. It's probably the best place in the world in terms of species diversity of ibis, which is not something people really think about. But it's very, very possible to have 7 species of ibis in a day.
Wow.
Yeah, including scarlet ibis, green ibis. But there's also barefaced ibis, and there's a couple others. There's sharp-tailed, which is one of the special ones there. Buff-necked, not barefaced. Barefaced and whispering. I get that was the there's black-faced in the south, and there's barefaced in the north, and they're very different. But I get those names confused. So yeah, there's a bunch of those, and there's jabiroos,
right,
which can be, and there's sometimes even big groups of jabiroos with wood storks.
Very cool.
Yeah,
I imagine that's pretty good when the water's more condensed at that point too. It
exactly.
brings them together.
Exactly. You get to these pools and we saw when Chris and I were there, it was early March a couple of years ago. And, there's places where you see hundreds of whistling ducks and dozens of wood storks and jabberoos mixed in with them. I think there were some places we saw like 60 or so jabberoos, which is pretty crazy.
Pretty
And I
cool.
think people don't realize how big those things are. It's like twice the size of a wood stork or something. They're like really enormous.
Yeah. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see those side by side.
Yeah.
Scarlet ibis was one that was not on my radar. I looked at their range map in Colombia. It's crazy. And I guess just all over. They kind of that's their inland route, right? Is coming in through Colombia.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I think everyone associates them with like Trinidad and Tobago, where you get like the big flocks. And it's pretty dramatic, especially if you go there at, dusk when they're flying around. I've never done that, but I've seen the photos and it's pretty iconic for that spot. But yeah, the Llanos is a good place. And Northern Colombia in general is a pretty good place for scarlet ibis. In some places you can see some pretty good concentrations of them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, one of the other ones is Orinoco goose. The Llanos is a good place for that in Colombia.
Yeah. It's a wacky bird.
Yeah, they really are. So... yeah, a whole bunch of good stuff there.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like we should tell folks a little bit too about some of the people that'll be joining us. Luisa Canto is with Nature Colombia. She's been organizing trips like this to Colombia for a long time, along with Giovanni Ortiz, who you mentioned, Mollee, and are good friends with. All of us are good friends and have spent time not only birding together, but eating and drinking together as well, which is, I think, a good indication that people know how to have fun together. So that'll be cool. And yeah, Chris Bell from the Birders Show. If you haven't checked out the Birders Show, really recommend it because there are some episodes that feature the Central Andes. And those really can give you a sense of kind of what birds to look for and what the experience is like. So definitely check out the Birders Show. They have a bunch of episodes, I think 20 or more episodes now. I was actually on the very first one. That was a lot of fun recording with Chris Bell and Diego Calderon. That was a lot of fun. And in addition to those folks, we'll have Roger Rodriguez with us, who's a longtime Colombian guide. Same with Andrea Beltran, who was on one of my first trips to Colombia, works closely with Alvaro Jaramillo, and Juan Manuel Cardona will be there as well. So those are kind of the main players with us at the Manizales part of the trip. Once we get to Cali, we'll even have a bunch of other friends with us as well at the bird fair.
That's right. Yeah. I was with Luisa and Roger on this past trip. And Luisa I'd met before. Roger I had not, but it was a lot of fun for our whole group. A bunch of women and Roger, which I think he's helped with other womenit's groups.
Yeah, he's done a couple of those now. So,
yeah, he's covered Colombia pretty extensively on his tour. So
yeah,
it's pretty cool to be with someone who knows, how those things compare too, and has a very good eye for, depending on, I don't know, what other birds you've seen or what locations you've come from, just putting together that part of the trip. Because, I mean, it's just a lot of birds, and you spend one morning in a place, and it takes a lot of strategy to maximize your birding and what you're seeing, and make sure you're spending the time on the species that'll be, I guess, the most bang for your buck in that way.
Yeah, I do think because people hear that Colombia's got 2,000 species of birds, and sometimes I think that sounds overwhelming. It's like, my God, we're going to be seeing 2,000 species a day. How are we going to, how are you going to remember anything? But the truth is that most days you're probably dealing with a similar number of species as you would on a really good day in the U.S. Like, you might have 100 species in a day. At some spots, but like up at Termales de Ruiz or in Nevados de Ruiz in the national park, they're way up. it might be just 30, 40 species, which is, not so different from a little outing in your patch near your home. It's just different species than you're used to from home, but it's not as overwhelming as it might seem. The travel is pretty easy, and the birding is quite manageable. It's just a whole, just everything's different. Yeah,
Yep.
folks shouldn't feel intimidated about the species count.
Mm-hmm. And honestly, a lot of the identifications, if you see the birds well, I mean, they're very obvious colors and shapes, and they're not too hard to identify compared to some of the groups that you have here on the regular in the U.S. And I mean, there's a lot to remember, but they're pretty spectacular birds all the way around.
Yeah,
I think the biggest single checklist that I had on my trip was about 80 species, which is a place I should mention too. It's on the Pasto to Pitalito route. It's pretty similar to what I just did on my trip. But it was at El Encanto Lodge, which I truly think might have been my favorite lodge I've ever stayed at anywhere.
Wow.
It was incredible. I absolutely loved it. I am dying to get back. But that was it. Well, let me talk through their setup. So, this is Central Andes, and they have a family-owned lodge that they started that's on about 6 hectares. So what is that? 2.5 acres to a hectare or so?
Something like that, yeah.
That they've been working on conserving for a few decades. And they've been chipping away at buying land that's a little bit higher elevation, and we just called it going up the mountain. It was just like a 40-minute drive, and in 4-wheel drive vehicles. And we went up. They had an incredible feeder set up. They had ant pittas and wood quail and 25 species of hummingbirds. And they were all just really close together. And we were kind of just bouncing back and forth between these 3 different feeder stations and walking the trails and catching these mixed flocks coming through all day. We took coffee up and some snacks and just hung out until mid-afternoon. So that was maybe a 6-hour checklist or so. But that place was incredible. That's where we had the cooking class too. It was actually there. The daughter of the family is a professional chef and cooked incredible meals, just really good stuff. And then we actually took produce that they grow there. They make coffee there. That's of course all shade grown, and they really just do these small batches that take on unique flavors based on whatever other plant life is around the coffee and those types of things. So yeah, I couldn't say enough good things about that incredible little lodge, and that'll be a really fun trip to do. I think it's a pre-trip, if I'm remembering correctly. Okay, yeah. So to do leading up to our main trip in February.
Nice. Yeah, we have some that are pre and some that are post the main event. So depending on when you want to go, you can go, depending on what your dates are available, that'd be something to think about. But
yeah. And I was wrong. That's a post trip. So
okay.
You'll be doing that after.
Gotcha. Nice.
Yeah. Oh, one other thing to note, correct me if I'm wrong. One of these pre-trips is the Magdalena Valley. So if you want to make your flights less complicated, this one doesn't require an internal flight to get to our main trip. You actually start in Bogota, and you're basically just taking a bus and over 5 days working your way to Manizales. And I mean, the airports are quite easy. I hit up several of them while I was in Colombia. It's one of those places where internal air or internal flights are pretty common and easy to navigate. But I think that would be a really cool sort of intro to Colombia. Just start in Bogota, take your time working your way over. And that would be, I think if it were my first trip in Colombia, knowing what I know now, that's probably what I would have chosen as my start to the trip.
Yeah, I'm just trying to remember. I just bought a book that I have not read yet. Here it is. Yeah. Magdalena River of Dreams. There's is folks may or may not know, there are 2 kind of main river valleys, and the Magdalena is the bigger of the 2. And there's this book called Magdalena River of Dreams, A Story of Colombia. by Wade Davis. It's this book comes highly recommended, so I'm looking forward to reading about it. I think it's a great story, but also kind of it's just revealing about Colombia in general. So I'm looking forward to digging into that. The mouth of the river is opens out on the Caribbean. So on the Santa Marta's trip, often, depending on where you fly in or fly out, you'll probably cross the mighty Magdalena. So, yeah, it's pretty cool. The other one is the Cauca Valley, and that's just Cali's just near the edge of that. So you can kind of bird some of the Cauca Valley a bit at the bird fair, very, very likely. So, there's chance on this trip to actually hit both of the main valleys if you so choose.
That's true. Yeah. You could just kind of pick a species list number that you want to hit and choose your trip accordingly. But yeah, there's a lot of corners to explore in Colombia. It's certainly not a place to just take one trip to. Yeah. Unless you take a very long trip.
Yeah. And that's part of the reason we were doing this is we thought that this would be a good toehold for folks. The Central Andes, where we're kind of based in Manizales there, it's a great place to begin. And if you want to add a little bit more, these extensions allow for that. So
one more thing that may or may not be on our site right now is the weather there and how it's very comfortable and cool. I wish that I would have brought one more warm layer last trip, actually. But as you're picking these different trips as well and looking at the elevations, your weather that you're in might change pretty drastically. And a lot of all of where we're based for the main part of the trip is, I don't know exactly what our full elevation range is, but I think it's going to be days that are 60s, 70s, 50s in the morning. You'll be very cool and comfortable the whole time. That's weather I enjoy. So I'm saying this is a good thing.
Yeah, I like it. I like it brisk, and it actually. I think it's a good point. Very often, they're heading to pretty close to the equator here. People assume that it's going to be warm, and up in the Andes, it can be pretty chilly, and especially up in Nevados de Ruiz, up in the Paramo area, it can be like in the 30s or low 40s. So up there, you definitely want to have like a fleece with you. Generally speaking, like comfortable hiking shoes, walking shoes will serve you pretty much everywhere we're going. But you do want to have another layer or two because it can get chilly. Even like some gloves and a hat are not a terrible idea for some of the high elevation areas. And that's even true at Hacienda del Bosque. It feels like you're lower, but you're still like close to 10,000 feet, I think. So it can be chilly. But then down to like El Tinamu, you're at like, I think 4,000 feet or so. So it is a pretty big range. Manizales itself is quite comfortable, as you say. It's a pretty comfortable kind of cloud forest, zone, and it's usually pretty pleasant. It can be a little wet, but usually that comes and goes pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we did want to just give folks a little rundown on that. So, we're looking forward to this event. We got a great team of folks. And if you have any questions, let us know. I think there are still some details we need to add to the site. We've been working on other stuff as well, but we have all the information. So if you have any questions, let us know. We're happy to answer any questions. We're talking about even like a Zoom chat potentially a little later on with folks. If you're interested in that, let us know so we can talk live and talk about any questions. But this is going to be a fun one. So it's the Colombians are excited about it too. This is part of the reason we're doing this is working with the Colombian government and the folks throwing the Colombia Bird Fair to try to put something together that's a little bit different and try to get folks there and enjoying birding in the birdiest country in the world. So should be a good time.
Definitely.
Cool. Well, we should sign off here, Molly. Anything else you think we should tell the good people before we go?
You might want to check out the Columbia Bird Fair website too, just to see some of the speakers and line up and get some ideas of what you would like to attend for that, if this is something that you're looking at. Jennifer Ackerman's one of the speakers, and one I really want to make sure that I catch. Didn't think that I would be going to Columbia to hear her speak, but but I'll take it.
No,
so,
it'd be fascinating to hear her. It'll be really great. Great. Well, super. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Mollee, always great talking to you. Looking forward to talking to you in Colombia and before. Have a great day.
Bye, everyone.
Cheers.